Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Gibbs Dabney, founder and CEO of Livezen Designs, a sustainable outdoor apparel company based in Fayetteville, Arkansas, best known for our Flex Canvas pants, which were recently featured in Outside Magazine, and Gear Junkie called them their favorite pants of 2020. Today's discussion, You Love the Outdoors, the Perks of Opting Outside, focuses on the benefits of exploring the outdoors. We'll discuss with athletes and advocates the importance of adventuring outside for overall health and wellness, as well as the need for diversity and inclusivity in outdoor recreation and activities. We're thrilled to have an amazing panel of talented and inspiring athletes joining us today. First up, we have Mirna Valerio, the Mirnovator. Mirna Valerio is a native of Brooklyn, New York, a former educator, cross-country coach, an ultra marathoner, and author of the best-selling memoir, A Beautiful Work in Progress. Although she began running in high school, she recommitted to the sport after a health scare in 2008 and started her own blog, Fat Girl Running, about her experiences as a larger woman in a world of thinner endurance athletes. While training for her first marathon, Mirna's athletic story was featured in the Wall Street Journal, Runner's World, on NBC Nightly News, CNN, and in the viral REI-produced documentary short, The Mirnovator. Her writing has been featured in Women's Running Magazine, Self Magazine Online, Outside Online, and Runner's World Magazine. And in 2018, she was chosen as a National Geographic Adventurer of the Year, and most recently appeared on the Kelly Clarkson Show and Access Daily. We also have on here Paxton Roberts. Paxton has been an avid cyclist for over 25 years. He started mountain biking recreationally in college and then spent several years racing road and more recently, gravel and mountain bikes. He enjoys riding with his 12-year-old daughter on the bike lanes and shared Drew's paved trails in the region. And when he's not riding bikes, he can be found outdoors fly fishing, paddleboarding, or rock climbing. Paxton has been an active member of the Arkansas bike advocacy community since 2012, when he became the executive director of Bike NWA, an organization responsible for spreading the good word of biking in Northwest Arkansas and helping improve our infrastructure and safety. Finally, let's welcome Laura Edmondson. Laura is an athlete and digital content creator, providing education through the lenses of social justice and environmentalism. Laura is also the creator and host of the podcast Let Us Rest, in addition to her work as corporate responsibility manager for Brown Girls Climb. When she's not working, you can find her traveling in her van, searching for the nearest sunny climbing spot. First question is for you, Mirna. You're such an inspiring figure for so many people who love to go outdoors. Can you tell us about your first experience with the outdoors and how they shaped who you are and where you are today?
I would say that my first experience with the outdoors was on my own streets in Brooklyn, New York, because that's the outdoors too. You know, it's not just trees and greenery and mountains and stuff, which obviously I love because that's what I do. But, you know, we spent a lot of time running up and down the street and doing lots of really, really cool games like Mother May I and Red Light, Green Light. Remember those things? And like exploring our neighborhood parks and going from pool to pool and doing really cool stuff like that. And so, and we were kind of forced to stay outside because our parents were like, don't come back till the evening. And we didn't. So we spent hours and hours and hours and hours doing those things and, you know, breathing in fresh air. I mean, like as fresh as it gets in Brooklyn, and just learning how to be and learning leadership skills, social skills, playing it together, team skills, all that outside on our own. The other thing I would say is that I did have an amazing opportunity to go to sleepaway camp in the Catskills when I was 8 years old. And that was a very, very formative experience for me. And I think that had I not gone to sleepaway camp and the first day, you know, having gone on a nighttime stream hike where I was terrified because it was so quiet and also so noisy because of all the crickets and crashes in the wilderness and stuff. Had I not had that experience, I wouldn't be doing what I do now. So two very different experiences, but two outdoor experiences.
You built your brand around being a representation for people of different shapes, sizes, and backgrounds to feel comfortable and confident and have an active lifestyle. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and your mission?
I will say that when I started my blog, Fat Girl Running, it was basically just for me and my friends so that I could share my experiences as a larger woman in endurance sports. I had a health scare in 2008 where I thought I was having a heart attack, but I wasn't. It was actually a panic attack because my lifestyle was crazy. I was working a full-time job at a boarding school, which is basically 24/7. I was in grad school. I had a kid who was always this tall, strapping kid here who was very, very sickly. I had a husband. I still have a husband with a very weird schedule. And I was also teaching private lessons on the weekends. And so like I had a lot of things that I was doing. I was really good at my jobs, all of them, and really good at grad school, which I didn't finish, by the way. And it was really taking a toll on me physically. So when I had this health scare, I really had a very cathartic moment in which the cardiologist I met with said, hey, if you don't change your lifestyle, you won't live to see your son grow up. That was it. That's all I need to hear. My body had been sending me these messages before. So the day after I got on a treadmill, it was really painful, but I knew that I needed to do something so I wouldn't die. And that grew into me doing 5Ks again, 10Ks again, half marathon. A colleague coerced me into signing up for my first full marathon, which is the Marine Corps Marathon in 2011. And that's when I started my blog, Fat Girl Running, because I was finding that I was having what I thought was, and what were very unique experiences as a fat woman doing these things. And then it just kind of exploded from a couple of years after from there, when Wall Street Journal caught wind of my blog. And now I get to not be a teacher, which is amazing. I actually am still a teacher. I will never not be a teacher, but I get to do all these cool things and be a representative for disenfranchised people who never thought that they could do the things that I do, like, standing on the rim of the caldera in the Azores, which is that second picture you see there. I have such a fantastic life, which is not to say that it isn't hard, but it is so fantastic. And hopefully I'll be able to continue doing this and continue going to like really cool places and meeting people and being hopefully an inspiration for people who think that they might not be able or have access to do these things.
How does being an active outdoors person contribute to a positive body image?
Having a routine or doing intentional physical activity just really makes you have a very intimate relationship with your body. When something feels off, when something feels great. And hopefully most of the time you feel great while you're doing it, as long as you're doing it because you love your body. And I think that confidence comes from knowing your body, loving your body, or working on loving your body. Not all of us are at the point where we can say, oh, I love my body so much. I love my body so much. I get angry at it sometimes, but I love it because, it can take me up mountains. It can take me around a volcanic crater. It has birthed a child. It's taken me across 6 days in the Rockies. It can do really wonderful things without equipment. Although I love equipment, I love bikes. That is what I think is the real confidence builder. It is having this intimate knowledge of your body so that when somebody looks at you and says, what are you doing on the bike? What are you doing out here on the trail? You're like, well, because I'm climbing this mountain and that's it. There are no stories or stigmas around, what you look like or, how tall you are, how short you are, how fat you are, how able-bodied you are. That's where I think that confidence and self-esteem comes from. Like the more you do something, the more at home you are in your body, the more you're able to kind of fight off the negative thoughts that you might have or the negative things that people might say to you.
Our current social justice awareness as a country has been brought forth so much positive and needed shifts and changes in our lives. Specifically, the need for diversity and inclusivity in outdoor sports, which we've been talking about. You've had to shift a bit as well, the conversations you've been having to touch on these topics. What would you like to see in the future for your sport and for outdoor recreation in general?
You know how I said I wasn't really a teacher anymore, but I am a teacher. I've had to actually shift my own business to teaching anti-racism workshops because that's part of my professional background as an educator. But I get to do it in these really cool spaces where people have never really done this work or have never had to actually think about it. And they want to think about it now. And they want to, have some strategies for incorporating anti-racism work, social justice work in their lives. And so I don't think the outdoor industry or the running industry, none of those industries exist in a vacuum. What's happening out in the world, in the real world, is happening in the outdoor world or in the running world or the trail running world, what have you. None of those things are separate from each other. So whatever you learn as just a regular non-running human is absolutely applicable to you as a runner, you as a mountain climber, you as a kayaker, whatever. But I think there's lots of work being done in terms of, I think of size and inclusivity. That's, that is a social justice issue because it is,
Sure.
It is part, if you think of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? We have the things that we need to to really, really get up to the area of self-expression, right? And feeling like we're part of a community, having clothes that I need to, go on a mountain or run or something like that in my size that are technically where they're supposed to be, for the activity. That is really important. Having people not question my existence on a trail, that is social justice. That is anti-racism. Having people not make assumptions about my skill level or my experience, being out on a trail or, doing a marathon, either because of the color of my skin, the size of my body, et cetera. Those are all things that will happen as we have this conversation in all areas of our lives.
Sometimes online conversations can get somewhat diluted, somewhat generic. So how do you fight against that and try to reach people in an authentic way?
I think the only way to reach people in an authentic way is to be authentic. So when I have something to say, I say it. That doesn't mean that I don't craft a response or I don't really work on the copy on my Instagram post, or if I write a blog post for one of my collaborative partners. I think it's really important to share the good things, because this day and age, we need so many good things coming at us because we have so many bad things coming at us. And so I love sharing that, but and sharing the good things, I am being absolutely authentic. How this mountain climb made me feel, how being able to do yoga yesterday, it's on my Instagram, after having surgery, made me feel so good. So I want to share that with people. I think it's important that we share those moments, but also important that we share the really tough, difficult moments. When we experience all those things that we experienced in April, May, and June, regards to racism just coming to the forefront again and again, I made sure I showed those difficult moments. And, I ran for Ahmaud Arbery, and I talked about, how my son is a tall Black boy who runs in our neighborhood and how worried I am for his safety. So I'm going to share those things too, because that is also important. So people get not just a full picture of who I am, but a full picture of what humanity is and what it can be.
Laura, we'll segue to you on this topic. You've built awareness on diversity and inclusion for some time with the work you produce. So how's the recent attention on diversity positively affected your work?
As unfortunate as it's been, the events that have happened to get people interested in doing this work, it's definitely brought a lot more eyes. It's brought a lot more curiosity, a lot more attention to the things that Black and Brown people have been saying for literally hundreds of years. So just that people are finally showing up, finally ready to put in a little bit of effort to start gaining more awareness, to start making changes. It's encouraging. It's definitely encouraging to help me keep going, because that burnout is always kind of looming in the foreground.
Have you seen any other positive shifts in the outdoor industry that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of support be thrown to organizations and companies that hadn't been given the spotlight before, to athletes that hadn't been given the spotlight before. I'm seeing a lot more capital resources be sent to areas of need, which is amazing. I'm also seeing a lot of scrambling, to be honest. I'm seeing a lot of scrambling, trying to catch up, but I hope that we will all hold them accountable and that it will ultimately shake out into some positive change.
In your opinion, what systemic changes need to be made?
So a phrase that we use a lot in kind of the outdoor advocacy, social justice space, is representation matters. So what that gets translated to a lot of the time is, let's put a Black person on the cover of this magazine, or let's sponsor a new athlete who's from a marginalized community. But what that also needs to look like is changing the long-term partnerships you have with people, whether that's organizations, influencers, athletes. It also means that the people behind the scenes need to change as well, because without that, it's just going to be somebody's face slapped on the cover of a magazine, and that's just tokenism. So it needs to be authentic representation, and the only real way to do that is to make sure that the marginalized voices that we're trying to represent are also being heard and kind of guiding those campaigns.
Outdoor rec has definitely increased with normal activities limited. So, going outside is one of the things that's just very socially acceptable right now. It gets you healthy. It's also distance from people because of COVID. So what are some ways you encourage people to explore the outdoors right now that might be accessible to a lot of our audience?
I would say start by getting curious about what's in your backyard, whether that's down the block if you live in a city, or I'm in a pretty rural area right now, and there's just kind of some open fields around, but I could very easily go out and take a walk, go with my dog, see what's around you. Because so often we think I have to go to Kalymnos, but you can very easily get outside just out your front door. Consider reaching out to your friends. Like, you can borrow stuff. If you've got a friend who's a rock climber, see if they'll take you out and let you borrow their extra harness or something. Like, reach out to the community that you already have. If like buying the gear is the barrier, consider reaching out. There are also gear libraries popping up. There aren't a ton that I'm aware of right now, but I know that they're starting slowly to build some steam. So see if there's a gear library in your area that you could just like rent or borrow some gear, if that's a barrier. If you are getting outside and you want to get curious about the land that you're on, look up the original inhabitants of the land. Look up the indigenous people who lived on the land before you. Kind of like spark your curiosity and go see some of the sites that may still exist, may not. Kind of consider the history of the land beyond, like you said, like your city wasn't just built in the middle of nowhere, like it was built on a forest. Like, who lived there before you did? And
Paxton, we'll move over to you. What are some opportunities you've seen in the Northwest Arkansas region for the community to make outdoor activities more accessible for everyone?
I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, and I used to always want to move away out west, but something always got in the way, and I stayed long enough to appreciate what we had. The region has truly just gotten better and better over the years. And, you know, we have a network now of over 300 miles of soft surface trails to go ride on or to go run on within less than an hour drive of where I live. And that's just amazing. It's something we never thought would be possible. We also have over 100 miles of shared use paved trails. And these go right through the heart of our cities, our old downtowns, our neighborhoods. And it reaches underserved communities who haven't had access to recreation or transportation infrastructure. You know, when you ask about being accessible for everyone, in my mind, it's about infrastructure and places to recreate and ride, that accessibility, but then it's also about programming and welcoming. And it's not just enough to have them. People have to feel comfortable getting out there regardless of the color of their skin or whether they have the fanciest bike. We've just come a long way over the last years in developing this infrastructure, but we also have a long way to go in making it welcoming, because it's not just something you can say it is. You have to actually put in the work to really have that door be open and for people to be comfortable. You know, there's been a lot of investment in urban connections to trails and parks. You can leave your front door of your office or your school or your house and ride to a trail. Here, you and I both live in Fayetteville, and there's this new trail they're in the process of building called the Fayetteville Traverse that goes right through the heart of downtown and connects 3 mountain bike trail systems. That's the accessibility that gets people out of their front door, regardless of whether they have a car that can drive to a trailhead. You know, we still see lots of people doing that, but not everybody can afford a fancy bike rack and a car to do that. And we've got to make it to where you have that accessibility.
Laura, what are some of the empowering experiences you've had on the road when adventuring and exploring?
It's a little nerve-wracking. I haven't actually been on the road too much in 2020. I would say most of my road travel this time around was last year before COVID. I've been trying to stay in one spot to avoid contributing to the spread, to be completely honest. But yeah, I did several months of traveling the last half of last year. Yeah, being a Black woman on the road alone can be nerve-wracking. I have like this whole list of safety tips that I compiled and shared on my Instagram feed sometime last year, just of things that help me feel safe. But yeah, like just following through and kind of beating those fears has been super empowering for me. Getting to connect with other road travelers who are doing similar things has been super empowering. I remember I was parked in Oregon on the coast, which is one of my favorite places in the country. I spent about a week up there, and I was just kind of chilling out the back of my van, like eating lunch or something. And this couple drove by in their van, and it was a Black couple, and they pulled over and they were like, "We have never seen another Black van lifer." Like, they were new to the road too. So just kind of connecting and making other people feel welcome and feel represented has been empowering.
You've also expressed a lot of passion for the need to respect the land that people engage with. Can you share your thoughts a little bit with people, how we can explore respectfully, how we can go into these fragile places and not damage it and really have that kind of experience?
I'm going to start by like learning whose land you're on, because everywhere is indigenous land. Like, Native Americans were here before we were. So a lot of the time I'll like make a post about where I am, and I'll tag the tribe whose land I'm on. And a lot of people think like, oh, you must visit all these reservations. Like, you go to all these different reservations. And I'm like, no, like, you're on Native land right now. You're in a city, but you're on Native land right now. So I think it starts there. It's like recognizing that history and doing your research. There are some great apps, like the Native Land app is a good place to start. It's not perfect, but it will get you started. So learning like their traditions around the land, that's a way to be respectful. Some mountains are sacred and maybe you shouldn't climb them, and that's okay. We just have to respect that. If you look at the wildfires that are going on in California, indigenous tribes had a history of prescribed burns, and they were prevented from continuing those when settlers arrived. Now they have these terrible wildfires, but if they had continued their prescribed burns, we might not be having these tragedies that we are right now. So looking to the indigenous people who have thousands and thousands of years of history with this land will help us learn how we can be more respectful. I think also following general leave no trace practices is also a really great way to start. Pack in, pack out your trash, stick to already defined trails, like don't go off trail. Carpooling is great. Like if you're just like worried about your carbon footprint in general, there are so many ways. Try a bike. That's a great sustainable way to travel if you're worried about the environment.
All right, Paxton, back to you. So Northwest Arkansas is a growing region. We know that. And we've recently been named or named ourselves the mountain bike capital of the world. How is your organization at Bike NWA creating an inclusive community for the sport in the area?
What are we doing as an organization? Well, it's about a lot more than just us. It's how we can support, amplify voices, and help cultivate a true community that's more than just one organization in its effort. But we are doing some things ourselves. Last year, we participated in a 9-month-long diversity, equity, and inclusion training that was funded by the Walton Family Foundation. And it was incredible that I learned so much, and it opened my eyes up. I had always considered myself not racist, but I learned that wasn't enough, that I had to take an active role, speak out, use maybe my small platform, not an influencer, but try to get my peer group and network to open their eyes to things. And I've got to just keep doing that. And it's coming out early on in support of Black Lives Matter and trying to, in a positive way, get other cycling orgs and groups in the region to do so as well, because we need everybody to be a part of it, and just providing support of some of the things we've learned in our journey and being educated, being afraid to take risks. You don't want to do the wrong thing as an executive director and programming and events and communications. We care a lot about doing it, but just, we're going to stumble sometimes. We came across, we were translating some signs for our Slow Streets effort in Spanish, but they weren't the same size, they weren't the same quality, and we were made aware after the fact that, hey, that's not equal when you stick just something up over here in the corner. And we're like, oh my gosh, we've got to make a change, and so we printed a bunch of signs, and that's just something that's maybe really small and just a small example, but it's just a lot of those adding up to make a meaningful change over time. We've had some of our staff support the creation of an Arkansas Latinas Bike Club. And I think right now there's almost 100 women getting out and riding from the Latino community. And,
That's awesome.
just supporting them. We're getting ready to announce a fundraiser later this month to try to raise money to help get bikes to provide and support that effort. We have one of our board members who, with another friend, organized the first BIPOC ride on our Slow Streets a few weeks ago. And our organization helped to provide bikes to people who didn't have them so that they could come and participate, and then just helped with the supporting and the planning and the logistics. So it's really about us engaging with those members of the community that represent, those underserved areas, and just how can we help them, and providing resources and support. And we have a lot more to do. I mean, it's just like we're just getting started. And we need to do a lot more, and we must do more. But there's also incredible organizations like Pedal It Forward NWA that recycles bikes and provides them to the community organizations. They fix and repair and then donate them to veterans centers and other groups that serve like the homeless population to help get them access to bikes. And then just a lot of clubs that are serving kids and getting kids riding on bikes and getting them out. And then I think this is something it's new, but we're working on a bike library concept right now for public libraries so that you could come and check out different types of bikes. Not everybody can afford to get $1,000 road bike to experience road cycling, right? And so how can we make it easier for somebody to just try something to see if they want to spend more money into an investment that is significant? And that could be mountain biking, it could be road cycling, it could be, a number of things.
So Paxton, you've been in bike advocacy for many years and started out working with kids inspired by your daughter. Why is it important to start planting these seeds early in kids? for them to get outside?
Early on, I realized that, there's like short-term change and long-term change. And, in order to have a cultural shift around living a healthy, active life, active transportation, getting out of a car, we've got to get more kids on bikes. Let's start young. And then instead of trying to convince them to ride or start new activities later on, let's just try to keep them doing those, for their entire life. Years ago, I guess it's probably been about 5 or 6 now, we worked with incredible support from the Walton Family Foundation once again. And we now have, I think, over 2,500 bikes in schools across the region. So our major school districts all have fleets of 30 to 40 bikes in every PE program. And there's a bike education curriculum that the kids go through. Since that time, we've also worked with the Strider Bike Company to start a Strider Learn to Ride program in elementary schools so that kindergartners and first graders are learning a balance bike and how to pedal so that when they come out of that, they're ready to ride. And then also great programs like Outride, which is targeted towards middle school students. We've really been focused in supporting and cultivating bike education in schools to just create that long-term change. If you ride a bike and learn the rules of the road, you're a safer driver. You have more empathy for those that you see walking or running or biking on the road or on the sidewalk because you've been there.
What are some other outdoor activities in the area you can suggest to people when they're visiting NWA?
Really, we have everything but your winter sports. I mean, you can't snowboard or ski usually. That's happened once or twice when we've gotten a big snow, but really every other outdoor activity that you would go to Colorado or Oregon is here. We have just as much as we have world-class mountain biking, we have world-class rock climbing where, people travel from all over the country to come and climb. And that's really incredible. We have wonderful rivers that are just beautiful to kayak or canoe on or fish. So there's no real off season. You just switch sports.
With that, we're going to go ahead and jump into some audience questions. This one is directed towards both Laura and Myrna. What are 3 things to focus on when planning for kids accessing the outdoors?
Well, as an educator, I think it's really important that, especially in outdoor ed. Now, outdoor ed has traditionally been very white and very based in sort of white culture and what those expectations are, what those sort of cultural things are. And I think that as we proceed, it's really important to, when we're bringing kids into the outdoors, that we really honor their experiences in whatever outdoors they have had access to, whether that's, on their stoop, whether it's outside, I think that's really important. It's also really important to, if people have reactions to being in the forest for the first time, not to pathologize that and to say, oh, okay, well, you're scared of this. Why? Let's talk about this. Why are we scared of the snake? Because snakes are awful, but they're not. But why? Because you've never seen one. What do you know about the snake? And then really make it an educational experience that's based in their own experiences and where you can broaden those experiences and introduce them to something else. Really honoring, I said this before, at the beginning, really honoring their experiences and their feelings and their knowledge that they already have. That hasn't always been my experience as someone who benefited from being thrust into the outdoors, but I would hope that that's something that is brought into current experiences and future experiences for kids.
Yeah, I saw this question come through too, and I was hoping we'd get to answer it because like Myrna, I was also lucky enough to go to sleepaway camp every summer. I even worked at the camp for a couple of years. I am very big into summer camp. I would say consider who's doing the planning. We can give you this advice right now, but if your staff that's planning for this year and the counselors or whoever else is going to be working with the kids aren't diverse, their experience is going to be different than maybe would be ideal. So diversify your staff. I think that's a key thing. Like Myrna was saying, all these kids are going to come with different backgrounds in the outdoors. So just letting them embrace whatever feels right for them. So if they don't want to go hiking because that's too extreme, have an option where they can just sit by the creek. That was one of my favorite activities at camp, was to sit by the creek and hunt for crawdads, and we'd put them in coffee cans, and probably not PETA approved, but it was super fun. So find a wider variety of activities that might appeal to different experience levels. We even had a personal care activity where we learned how to care for our skin in the outdoors and did mud masks. It was amazing. So there are all kinds of things that you can do that might be more approachable to somebody who's only experienced in the outdoors is their backyard or their stoop. And then also like different languages, I would say. Be prepared to accommodate different languages.
Real fast, Laura, someone wanted to know about when did you get your start in climbing?
I actually started climbing for the first time at the summer camp that I've been talking about when I was about 10. So I went, I guess, once or twice a summer during that week of summer camp every year, and then didn't really realize that you could climb without a guide or without like a professional involved until I was much older. I think I was like 25. And I finally bought my own gear and learned how to climb on my own. So I've been climbing consistently for about 5 years now. I am a transracial adoptee. So I was raised by a white family and they sent me to a white summer camp because that's where they went growing up. So no, it was not diverse. Me and the other Black girl at camp constantly got confused for each other. Like, it was not diverse. What helped me was I just trusted the climbing guide that was there. I'd been to that camp every summer of like my childhood. So I knew the guide and had a strong relationship with them. So I felt comfortable. Like if he said I wasn't going to fall when I let go of the wall, like I trusted him. So I think building that relationship is important. Yeah, just making sure everyone feels comfortable. And if there is any hesitation or fear, just like not shaming that and just letting that be okay.
Climbing is amazing. And my first experience with it wasn't great, but I will say, I just want to give a shout out to auto belays. I know like real climbers don't like them, but as far as being able to just kind of do it on my own and figure it out on my own and feel safe at the same time and not worrying about people waiting for me to climb and whatnot was really, really instrumental in me going out again and doing real climbing without the auto belay, with real people, belaying me. So just a shout out to that.
Hey, if your crux is social anxiety, an auto belay is a great way to beat that.
What's the one thing you want the audience to take away today?
I'd say get involved in your community, seek out your local nonprofit or opportunities to volunteer and give back in the outdoor recreation or active transportation advocacy space. Get your neighbors together and ask the city to make changes, whether it's bringing trails to your parks or calming the street in front of your house. Vote for politicians that stand up for your values and want to create the city that you live in and, help create that community, that vision that you have. And hopefully it's an equitable one and it's diverse. So.
If you have a body, it belongs out on a trail, on the road, on a bike, in a lake, in a river, with a snake. If you have a body, you are entitled to use it outdoors. That's all.
I'd say throw out all of your preconceptions. Throw out your idea of what it means to be outdoorsy. Throw out your idea of who is an outdoorist. Just get rid of it all and start from scratch.
Well, thank y'all so much for coming. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. It's been really great.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.